So I'll give you the key message to take away for us, and we'll give it you up front, and then hopefully share some examples with you. The key message is that everything in our business should start with the customer. So it shouldn't start with data, and we see a lot of businesses who start with the data of what can the data do for us, rather than what does the customer need, and how can the data help us to do that. And so that's how we look at it. The single biggest thing that drives anything in our business is our people. The only thing that we really obsess about after customers is making sure that we have the right culture, the right DNA, and the right people in the business. So then you think, okay, so how can data inform that? So something we did quite a few years ago was to build a DNA algorithm, to actually have a positivity test which will have high statistical accuracy on whether somebody is right for us or not. And yes, we will get some wrong, but fundamentally, if you get most of them right, then you'll have a better place to work. I think people that are positive, happy, engaged, passionate, have a productivity level of 4, 5, maybe 10 times more than somebody who's just told what to do. So how do you do it? So we went through a whole, basically, data input exercise. We analyzed all our best people and all our worst people. We didn't talk to them about being our best people and our worst people, but we knew who they were. And we said, so what traits does this person have? What traits does this person have? We put, not quite everyone, but the vast majority of people in the business through psychometric testing. And then we distilled it all back, simply, to about 10 or 12 questions that have just got refined over time. And we put people through those questions. And you will come up with a probability score of whether you're right for us. You will never know what the score is, because it just determines whether you get to the next stage of the interview or not. And if you don't, you're just not for us. And so for example, the only people that ever meet our customers are our drivers. So they have to be positive. We have to police it, but we have to start with the basic raw materials in the first place. So all our drivers have to complete an online test. It's just some very basic questions, but their answers will dictate whether they get through to the next stage of that test. And so we even put data into the culture of how we run the business. I think we have a phrase in the business which is that exceptional service is the most profitable service. So we think about it in a way that we want customers to go, wow, and we want our cost to deliver that to be as low as possible. So one of the investments that we made was one of the big reasons for customers to call us in a morning is to ask us what time the delivery is coming. It's one of the most infuriating things, because we send a text message, we send a voice reach message, we send them an email, they can track and trace, and they still ring and say, what time is it coming? So obviously, we then have to pay people to answer those calls, and we have to deliver those messages to customers with paid people. So what we decided to do was we invested, I don't know the exact number, but it was millions. It was about 3 million quid to serve the answer. So when you ring us, you give us a piece of data, which is your phone number. Through that phone number, we can look at your order. We then run a probability calculator that says, why are you ringing us? And so it works it out, it looks at your order, and it says, Peter's got a delivery out this morning, and he's having a washing machine delivered. He's got an 82% probability, if he's ringing before 10 o'clock in the morning, that he's ringing us, despite having had the text message, to ask us what time his delivery is coming. So the system will then look at the vehicle that has got his order on it. And it will get a real-time, it refreshes about every 2 minutes, and it'll pull that information back for him, and it'll deliver the information back in a real-time way. So what he actually gets as an IVR, as a recorded message, is dynamic and personal to him. So what it happens is, it'll just say, it'll recognize the number. It does it, don't ask me how, I'm not a techie, by the way. But it does it like in a click. And it'll say, Peter, thanks for calling AO.com. The delivery you have scheduled today will be with you between 1 and 2. If you wish to speak to somebody, please hold. And two key things then happen. The first one is he goes, wow, that's cool. Because that's the piece of information I wanted, and actually I didn't really want to speak to anyone. But more importantly for me as a business, he then goes, bang, and he puts the phone down. So yes, we have a big investment up front to make that happen, but then the scalability that we get out of that is enormous for outstanding service at lowest cost. If you take another example, in all our customer reviews that we do, we take all the themes out of those reviews. One of the big themes out of them is that people like the fact that we call them between 60 minutes and 30 minutes before we make the delivery. Obvious, but very simple. So we've got hundreds and hundreds of vehicles out there every day doing deliveries. How do you actually police that? How do you make that happen? How do you make the consistency of that? Because some drivers will do it, and some drivers won't do it. So how do you make sure that they all do it? So you take the data that you've already got, that the systems are rerouting the vehicles all the time. So we know when we are within that window away from you. So with the first iteration of it, we then serve the task onto the handheld terminal thing that the driver has that says you need to call the customer. So we route that, he taps that, it routes through the call center so we can record the call, and he calls the customer. And we had a reasonable success rate with that, but drivers are their own particular creatures. They like being out on the road on their own. They don't like being particularly governed. And so one of the big excuses that came back to us from drivers was, well, that's all very well and good, but at the time, I was carrying a washing machine into a customer's house. Okay, so how do we deal with that? So we also have a piece of software on every single vehicle that tells us how fast that vehicle is moving. And we have 2 people in every vehicle. So what we need to do is we need to combine a piece of data that says we are within 60 minutes and 30 minutes. We need to present the task to the driver when the vehicle is moving at over 10 miles an hour. So then there's absolutely no excuse whatsoever for him not to make, for the mate, not the driver, for the mate to make the call within 5 to 10 minutes. And we use the data to track whether they've done that on compliance, so that if they haven't done it, we will pick that up. But we'll pick it up by exception in the call center. So we stitch together 4 or 5 or 6 pieces of data to just make something that might sound a very small thing that the driver calls, but what it does is it delivers amazing consistency for the customer on the things that the customer is telling us are important to them. And when you actually think about it, we just sell white goods. It's not the sexiest thing in the world. And it's certainly not it's not a thing that most people wake up getting excited about. But if you actually think about the difference between Dell and Apple, they both make computers. But one company makes sexy computers, and the other one makes computers. And so the way that we think about this is, how do we do all the bits of things around the edge of our business that actually just require a lot of thought to do them brilliantly, and to look at all those touch points and be prepared to invest in whatever you need to invest to make them happen. Because the other thing that I've learned is that most people, frankly, are not happy to make those investments. And certainly, when you take the step into being a public business, making those investments is slightly more controversial. Because sometimes it does require a dent in short-term profits. But then when we go to Germany, as in our business that we've done recently, we get all that stuff basically for free. So from day one over there, We launch with next day delivery with drivers that just do make the calls 30 minutes ahead. They don't know any different. When we go into another territory, it all just kind of happens. And so we're always happy to make the investment if we can do it at scale. The other point that I would make is about personalization. It's a huge topic, and I think it's hugely complex and very difficult to actually deliver. The theory of it, we found, is reasonably easy, and there's a lot of shite, frankly, talked about it. But if you just look at what a customer is telling you, so there's a great Googler, Avinash, and the one word he gave me was the amount of people that will give you their intent. So what they are typing into the Google search bar gives you the intent. What you need to do is then match what you return to them exactly what their intent was. And the way that I explain this to our guys internally is if someone was typing in black premium washing machines, only show them black premium washing machines. Don't show them all black washing machines. Don't show them all washing machines. And start with very simple layers of personalization. Don't try and dash to the end game on it. And the way that we explain it internally is when you walk into a department store, none of the staff in there have any idea what you want. Zero. When they walk into your website, you should have a bloody good idea about demographics. You should have a good idea how they got there on search, and there are very few businesses that actually use that data intelligently. And imagine it walking into Selfridges and saying, "I'd like a blue tie with yellow spots," and the salesperson saying, "Ties are over there." It wouldn't be very engaging. But go and shop your own site. We're very critical of ours. I think our website's awful. And I'll always think that, however good it gets. But imagine if you walked in and said, "I'd like a blue tie with yellow spots, please." And a guy goes, "No problem. I have 4. Which one would you like? I have 4 at 4 different prices, 4 different brands." And if you said, "I'll have that one," and he just said, "No problem, tap your phone on the tie, it's done, and leave." It's like the awesome in-store retail experience that in reality they will never, ever be able to create. And data for us as a business allows us to do so much more than a physical in-store environment can do. And I think you can personalize it. I think you can create information for consumers based on their shopping habits with you, based on the information that they basically just come in with as the baggage. If you're looking for it, if you're prepared to invest in it, if you obsess and think about it, and if you fundamentally start with the customer and work backwards from there. If you start to build from the data up, you'll end up in some very strange place, and you might invest lots and lots and lots. And actually, it would be a case of the operation was a complete success and the patient died because it's of no use to a customer. So start with the customer, work everything else back from that, because customers vote with their credit cards. And if they vote for you with their credit cards, then frankly, most other things take care of themselves. Thank you very much.
One of the things that struck me, though, you gave the Selfridges example with the tie with the yellow spots. Do you feel, as an online business, you need to start thinking about how to be present in physical locations and sell in physical locations? Because as you know, you've been growing so fast, you've caught the attention of so many traditional businesses, they put a lot more focus on e-commerce.
So we never say never, because never is a very long time. But I believe that we can create a better experience online. I also believe that I can never compete with the best salesperson that there is in the best store. I can never compete with that, ever. So if I without hopefully not being indulgent or arrogant about it, if I could meet every customer that was visiting our website, I think if I could speak to them, I could get them to buy from us. And so I can't compete with somebody that you've made the effort to come into my store, you've driven to the store, I've got what you want, I'm brilliant, I'm going to explain it to you, I'm going to deliver it to you, I'm going to be competitive. I can't compete with that. But fortunately, there's very little at that quality. So we think about it in terms of scale. I think going forward there will be a mix of store and online retail, and we want to dominate online retail. I'm not saying we will never have stores, but it's certainly not in our runway. There's enough opportunity out there without it. That's
Brilliant. Listen, please thank John for his great insights. Cheers. Thanks, John. Thanks very much. That's great.